Yes, we are live. Let's go through. Does anybody have a Warpcast log? Then we can check in the some of the example frames.
Um,
Unusual login.
I do.
If you go to Dan's profile, I think you can. He has a thread of all the frame. Okay, I have it actually.
I'm sorry, Dan's profile.
Dan Romero. If you search,
DWR. Yeah.
Okay, how do I find that? Oh, search.
okay, it opens. I'll share. I got it.
Okay, found them anyways. And what's called thread of V2 frames.
Yeah. So if you click on it, it opens a different tab on the desktop browser. Uh,
Didn't just a second.
so this is
Click on
the
the baseball, you mean? And the basketball.
yeah.
It does.
I think this is the most played frame right now, or most used one.
How do I activate the basketball? It's only giving me a countdown.
What do you mean? Uh, it,
I,
it it opens a different tab and then you just swipe.
no, I have a different tab. Okay.
It should like share, say on the top, share this tab or something.
Okay, I got one in.
Okay, and then what is this?
Okay, wait. I didn't get it. There we go.
Token name YaRG. Test YaRG.
All right. I will stop playing.
YaRG.
This embedding games inside of a website like a frame, isn't that basically like 2010's Facebook?
Something like that. It seems familiar. But this thing is big on Telegram. Telegram has lots of mini apps.
Yeah.
And
So that basketball game was like WebGL or something.
maybe I don't know.
Let's see if it says anything.
But yeah,
Somebody has done like a cute 3D rendering and then uses WebGL or converts that to WebAssembly, and then they have like a three-dimensional program like auto-generating 3D diagrams.
so in a way, this has become somewhat boring. It's just standard web apps now. You can do everything that you could do before on like web apps. So I guess the interesting part is how the framing part is done and how the forecaster piece is fitting in, right? Because yeah, these look kind of like familiar things I've seen before.
Yeah, but now it's underneath the blockchain. So all of the charging and managing and whatever.
That's what I'm saying. That's the interesting part. So not sure how that's been done. But you said this is used in Telegram too. Do you have like an example of that you can share?
So you know the Frog Crypto.
Yeah.
So I think I saw you going to the browser and you collecting frogs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was never doing that. So I used to do it within Telegram itself.
Oh, okay. Let me
So
see.
Telegram has that as a mini app, or sorry, that Frog Crypto kind of becomes, that browser thing becomes a mini app within Telegram. So
Oh,
I
okay.
was like collecting the frogs within Telegram. So that was one example.
Okay.
And then also the what the ZU pass. I have it as a mini app in Telegram.
Okay.
So I was authenticating myself at this Dev Connect and
Okay.
DevCon with the mini app within Telegram.
Okay.
So I didn't know it was actually a browser thing. So I saw you doing within a browser, then I realized, okay, this is like a browser
Yeah, I've
mini
only
app.
done it on the browser. So,
Okay.
okay. Yeah, I still don't have good intuitions about this whole UX, embedding little apps inside social feeds. Yeah, and I've still not wrapped my mind around it, but it does seem to kind of solve distribution in a way, right?
It's
That's
just like one way to have a chain of trust, right? Right in the same user experience. And that's perhaps is a boring just web page, but with all the flexibility it brings, but also this apparently this transparent chain of trust. Because what Anuraj describes, I don't use Telegram at all because this, but inside Telegram, if we can do something without extra authorization and so on, as long as we have the authorization in the first place, it's quite smooth, right? It's pretty big in terms of user experience, which is a
no,
big filter.
isn't that? I'm still struggling to see the difference between that and things like login with Google, login with Facebook, OAuth. All those things also kind of do the same thing, right? No.
It's like saying that email and Twitter is the same thing.
Okay,
It's
so
a
yeah, what about
communication method. Okay, it's a communication method. I can give you a message, I can give you a picture, or I can give you a little interactive applet which puts my message to you across better. It's a different type of missive going from me to you. So doing it as a game doesn't mean much. But I'd like you to imagine, okay, I'm still thinking this through, but I'd like you to imagine that I have a new idea on how to control a rover. So I could send you a demo, which you leaves the social media app that you see it on, runs a demo, and then go back. Or I could give you something inside the social media app, which is a mini demo, and it just gives you, just a little bit of my new idea, and you assimilate it while you're still, scrolling through the feed. The
Yeah,
only
I get the
problem is
social.
the
We saw
inference is
that and
different.
that worked well in DevCon with the one Anuraj built. I'm just wondering if technically anything different is going on because it's crypto, right? Like, so a couple of things have to happen. Some sort of like authentication has to go through, some kind of like session persistence thing has to go through. But in the crypto case, also I think like wallet authorization type things have to go through. So something extra is happening, I think, that doesn't happen with like when you do log in with Google, it says you can, this app is requesting to share your email
Right.
and access to docs or something, right? So I'm wondering at that level of like session handoff, what more is happening. Yes, I totally agree with you on the social value, by the way. Yeah, there's like a whole lot of like soft social value that gets added by simply presenting the UX inside the feed. And I suspect if you wanted to, you could probably pull something like that off with like Google or Facebook too, right? So that's not sort of the technically unique part of doing it with crypto.
No, no.
You
The
can't do it
minute
with Google or Facebook.
That's why I said the difference between email and Twitter. The minute you have to do it using Google, you're leaving, in your mind at least, the social feed. Here, I'm not leaving the social feed.
Yeah, that's
I'm
what I'm saying.
going through it.
No, you misunderstand. I'm saying while you're in Gmail, I can conceivably imagine that Google people could implement it in such a way that apps show up in your email, or Facebook people could do apps with it. Actually, Facebook did that. That's what Brett was pointing to, like the Zynga games from like 15 years
Yeah,
ago, Farmville and things like that. Those were embedded in the social feed, right? So I'm wondering if,
they were very heavy.
yeah, they were heavy. Yes. That's
I think
No.
it's the same technology. The point is that you just didn't have to log in, and your social network comes with you into the thing that you're
Mhm.
running
What
without
I'm
any
trying,
extra steps.
what I'm trying to say is the frames are small, so we can't do big, complicated games. The
That was
mindset.
true.
necessarily true, is it?
Now that's changed. V1 was limited to the 4 buttons UI. Now it can be any completely general web app. So it's only limited by the physical real estate of the screen, which I assume can expand to be full screen, and it'll be just like you can do
It is.
anything.
The basketball is full screen.
So for me, I have a problem with the difference between Google and Twitter because to me, both of them are centralized authentication. While here, the big difference is that it's decentralized. Okay, it's the same visible user experience to some extent. So, for example, with Zynga in Facebook, okay, it looks like the same user experience, but what is behind, what's happening behind is quite different, right? In the sense that it's decentralized authorization. I don't remember. I don't remember whether it's a level 2 protocol or something like that. Okay, I don't think it's really down to the blockchain. Okay, but it's something like that on the implementation side, right? I read that a year ago. I forgot. Sorry.
I think initially it was actually Warpcast only, which is basically centralized. Now the new frames, Anuraj may know better, but I think it's now on the Farcaster protocol. So it's at least, more decentralized, right?
Well, uh, both are on the protocol, but I think the first one was mostly implemented by Bobcast client. But now I think the Frames V2, there is a client called Recaster, and I think there is one more client. They have also implemented the frames. So basically, like if you have implemented according to the protocol, all the clients on the protocol itself should be able to render it.
And in principle, it might not be a good idea. We could actually write a client ourselves that's robotic
Yeah.
specific, right? But it's a bad
Yes.
idea, I think, but we could do it.
Yeah.
In the documentation for V2, which is apparently not official yet, okay? I don't know. I never get it through the official documentation, but not official. I mean not prime time. But there is, I think there are 2 examples, and the first one is quite well detailed. Okay, I had a quick read. Unfortunately, I saw that it was more than I expected. Okay, but is this something that would help to see better how it's done? Maybe to review that.
Yeah, so they have just started it. I think like this is still in beta phase or alpha stage or whatever.
They have 2 examples: a simple app, and after the yoink, I don't know how to say this word, yoink thing. Okay, but the yoink thing, there is almost no detail. It's just the GitHub repository basically. But the other one is kind of walk through the whole thing basically. It's a get started tutorial kind of, but it also explains a few things.
Yeah, Yoink is just a game that you. It's like capture the flag. So you sign it with your wallet that I'm taking the flag, and then it keeps on going. It's a small game.
Oh yeah, Yoink is the one that was the example in the workshop we attended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was quite complex given the simplicity of the front end game. The back end was like more complex than I expected. The code is all on.
So sorry, I can't find the page, but yeah.
I think it's somewhere here, right?
I have a question. When you build an app, a server for Frames, is that server itself, could it be signed on the blockchain? So that if I want to copy yours and make a change in it, it can be, publicly verifiable?
I didn't understand your question.
Let me explain. Let's say I play a game on Facebook. People see that I'm playing that game, so they modify it so it steals money from my account. I have no way of knowing that happened. On the other end here, if the server is signed, let's call it, on the blockchain, anybody can see what server it is that's used for my game, and we can see that it changed or didn't change, and that somebody checked it, or any other information you want to have about it. Okay, because these are not just games; they actually take money from your wallet.
So yeah, you mean like a copy that looks the same but it does something else. So right now, basically, you are trusting the
One.
caster, somebody who is casting a frame. You are trusting that person that behind the scenes is just going to yoink the flag.
That is correct. So, do they support blockchaining the server?
I think you could prove it that the code has not been changed somehow.
No, I know I could. I'm asking if the specification now.
No, I don't think so. Because yeah, but I think like when you are connecting to the wallet, there is some sort of simulation then what is going to happen. So like right now when I'm like running the my frame server for the rover, when you click pay 1 USDC on the wallet, it will simulate the transaction. Okay, like 1 USDC is going from your wallet to the rover wallet. So that is kind of simulated, and but they don't guarantee anything. So there is like a small level of check.
Yeah, but that just, it could be collecting my personal information. It could be doing a psych eval on me and then publishing it for everybody to see. The five weirdest people on the internet. So that's why I'm asking.
No, I don't think that is specified in the protocol itself. That
Okay, so let me ask a question like this: can we do it in the rover? Can we guarantee that the server running behind the frame, or the rover that's supposedly carrying out what you're doing, is actually doing what it did yesterday, or what was verified by some verification player?
So I think this is actually like one part seems easy. You could just like tunnel additional like signings and authentications on top of the basic like connection. But the other part is it sounds like the what's that camera project that does the sign
cost.
photography?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, cost. So
exactly.
at one level, you would say, all right, this is a Farcaster frame server, and it's on that protocol. And on top of it, you would say, all right, this is the private key of this particular server. So that's the basic level. Then you would say, all right, this camera is on the same rover it was on yesterday, something like that, if you wanted to. I think, right? Does this sound right?
Yeah, kind of like you could do it
Hmm.
with a basic public-private key authentication, right? Every like rover or server kind of shows its public key, and then it could
Yeah,
sign,
so,
and others
so
could
But
basically verify.
but is there a client that would verify it for you? Like something built into the frame
Mm,
specification that could
in other
verify
words,
it, right?
can I reframe the question? Is there any way for Farcaster to confirm that it's the same camera I was using yesterday? Forget, I was thinking about the software, but the camera, is a more interesting thing.
Yeah, it seems like there's a way. I mean, we haven't looked at this protocol in much detail, but it seems likely that it's providing authentication and cryptographically, but it's not going to for the user to the server. But it's nothing that's going to like authenticate the other direction beyond HTTPS.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
can the block can Farcaster do it? Forget about the Flames protocol. Okay, is there any
Yeah, that's a
mechanism
good
in
question.
Farcaster that allows me to send associated with this frame are the following authentications: 1, 2, 3.
I mean, the frame itself is associated with the user account. So to that level, you're authenticating that whoever is serving the frame is the same entity. But beyond that, that seems too specific. Why would that be a forecaster problem? It's authenticating one way that the client trying to talk to your robot is this account, and the other way it's saying that this frame is being served by this other account. But why would it go into the details of like the content of that pipe. It doesn't seem to
For
make
the
sense.
same reasons that the guy was making the camera, which authenticates to the extent that it can the GPS location and time at which the picture was taken. The point is that the minute you leave the blockchain authenticated stuff, who knows what kind of garbage people are feeding you. So the further you reach, the more reliable what you see is, and the more difficult it is to hack. Okay, so
I agree that's useful to have. I don't agree that it's forecaster's problem or job to do that. Forecaster's problem is to do mutual authentication two-way and create a pipe. What happens in the pipe is like matter of mutual consent between the two accounts, as far as I can tell.
I think what would feel similar to what you're talking about, Mayor, is to say, rather than see the data come back through the frame, you want that account to post the data back to its feed.
but it wouldn't.
And then
feel
you
the
have,
same, 'cause-
and then you have an authenticated feed of data that's coming
okay, yeah.
through, right? It may not be integrated into the, just not integrated into the frame.
Yeah, I don't need it to be integrated into the frame. I mean, that's nice. I'm asking if the forecaster itself can tell me, when I enter the frame, I get a message, okay, telling me here's a authentication that the camera is such and such. And Venkatesh, you're right. They don't need to do more than authenticate the pipe. But if they want the pipe to reach further, they should give me a tool by which whoever's putting something on the pipe can say, look, I'm safe.
I think this is like Oracle equivalent. Like, consider a human at the other end. Like, you don't know who's using my account. It could be my wife. It could be somebody wearing a mask like me. It's like an open-ended problem of like authenticating anything that could happen on the pipe, right? So I kind of don't see why you're expecting.
Because I don't know what they have, but for us it's much simpler. We have a Rover, okay, and the Rover has a sensor and a location. And yes, absolutely, I got some appetite from seeing the authenticated camera, and I'm asking myself, okay, my Rover has that authenticated camera, which hasn't come out yet, right? But I have that authenticated camera on my Rover, and I want everybody to know that the pictures they're getting is authenticated. Okay, it's not an open-ended issue. It's more focused. Like I said, I was thinking about the software, but just the camera.
No, I think it's still open-ended. It seems close-ended from the point of view of the camera, but from the point of view of forecaster, it could be a million different things that they'd have to certify. That's an open-ended Oracle problem. So yes, I can see the camera like signing an image and like posting a cast saying this is signed by that camera or whatever, and that's part of the content of the feed. Just like I might like sign my messages, but
you could still cheat. But Anuraj said we could have, some sort of authentication. I'm saying, yeah, can Forecaster manage that authentication for me? And tell me, listen, we can't guarantee that the camera is not being cheated, but at least the camera itself is camera whatever V2.5 and so on. It's not about giving me a guarantee. It's about going, one step further in how much is happening on the blockchain.
So I think one way you could do that is just to give the camera itself a forecaster account. Then it becomes an entity on the forecaster network, and therefore anything the camera casts, it comes from the camera. Just like you and I have a forecaster keypad.
So fine. Can you do that? Can you do that when I'm in the frame of controlling the Rover, the window which shows me the image comes from a different forecaster account?
Okay. So then it would have to be able to proxy that. So if it's my camera and it has its own account and I have my own account and I'm tweeting something the camera is tweeting, then I guess it would pass through the camera's account, something like that. So it's like this sounds similar to what the Ethereum people call account abstraction. So multiple accounts that interact in particular ways like this, like chain of trust stuff.
Yeah.
So this is it sounds like an account abstraction problem, but other than that, but it seems to me it's simpler to think in terms of dumb pipes, and then we handle all the authentication and stuff that goes on inside. It's like you're talking to a robot, learn the robot's authentication language.
Yeah, but the whole
That's-
point of using Farcaster is that they provide the authentication.
And they provide the client.
Yeah. So let me rephrase my question again. Does Frames allow splicing in feed from another Farcaster account? Okay.
Yeah, you could have like a mini app, mini client within a client, but
Can you put another Farcaster inside the frame server?
How about a list?
Oh, someone's got to do that immediately.
This sounds convoluted. It's like, expecting your national passport to do everything, like serve as a driver's license, serve as like your local apartment's fob. It's like,
That's what they promise when they give you a biometric ID.
yes, that might actually be a pathway, like, something like biometrics as sort of the integration authentication. Like you could fingerprint the robot and like tie it all up. Okay, this is a deep bunny trail. I don't know how far we want to go down this particular thing. But yeah, what else is worth looking at?
Just one thing that. Sorry, please, Anuraj.
no, I was just saying Venkat had some diagram which you wanted to discuss, right?
The money
The
diagram.
diagram should be taken in the spirit of the best way to get the right answer is to post the wrong answer. So it's one of those wrong answer diagrams. But yeah, I think it might be useful to spend a few cycles, at least on a little bit of abstract architecture, so we don't get too tied into like, very path dependent, like funky decisions that Farcaster may be making. Oh, but while we're talking about that, some guy on Blue Sky replied to something I posted saying he's doing some sort of like simple proof of concept open frames client for Blue Sky. I posted that in the thread. So it could be that Frames catches on as a more generic cross-social mechanism. If so, it increases the value of building on it. But yeah, this. The one thing I was trying to fit in but didn't have time to put in was like AI fits in somewhere here. If you have like LLMs translating commands, either living at each rover level or whatever, that would be worth putting on the diagram. But yeah, this is, trying to do frames for ACK protocol. So I think there's nothing in the frame spec that ties it to blockchains in particular. It just passes through Farcaster authentication. So I assume if there was somebody motivated, they could implement from frames for any reasonably capable social protocol. So this is an attempt for Blue Sky. I assume it can be done for ActivityPub and others too.
Yeah, so this mini app thing is like seems to be catching on again. Like Telegram has it, Frames has it now. Oh, sorry, Farcaster has it, and Blue Sky wants to have it.
What about Threads?
Threads is on ActivityPub, so if it goes to ActivityPub, Threads will get it too. But wait, can you say more about what you mean by mini app? Is that like a W3 standard or just a
No, like
term, or what is it?
it's the generic term I've seen being used. So it started with Telegram, but now I think this Frames V2 was initially called mini apps, but now they are calling it Frames V2. But it's like a small web app within the main app. But it's not just that Farcaster has it.
Is it similar enough that you could, for example, bridge a Telegram mini app to a frame, or vice versa? Or
I'm not sure. I don't know enough web to comment on that.
that can be one of our like look into questions for later. I mean, this is all just exploratory questions.
So sorry, but apparently, Anuraj and Venkatesh, you were discussing about having a Telegram mini app running well inside Telegram and also on the web. If it's on the web, in theory, there should be no problem to have it in other frame, whether it's a frame v2. Frame is in a HTML sense. Okay.
No, because like I think it's kind of similar because the Frog Crypto user interface, what I've seen Venkat use, and the mini app I use in Telegram seems to be the same. So like there is a lot of common code it seems, and then to make it a mini app, there might be some extra tooling.
So wait, at 2 points. One, I don't think this usage of frames has anything to do with the old HTML frames, right? That's like an obsolete standard. Everybody uses divs or whatever now. And the fact that the interior of the frame or mini app is always some generic web app doesn't mean the sort of like envelope it goes in has to be similar, right? So Telegram could be using a different envelope than
Yeah.
Farcaster. So they
Yeah.
might not be interoperable. Okay, good to this one though I think is meant to like mimic
Okay.
the one.
It seems like people are trying to make a common protocol itself for the frames.
That would be good.
So this link you posted from Blue Sky, basically he's describing open frames specification based on Farcaster frames.
Okay.
It's kind of becoming a open standard, but not there yet, I guess.
Yeah, I wouldn't read too much into this. This is just one guy doing one rudimentary implementation. It'll be a big project to get this adopted as a standard. But yeah, if this is like, let me put it this way, if we do something with frames, we should make sure it's compatible with whatever he's doing here as well. That way, it not only is portable to Blue Sky, it strengthens the case for like a cross protocol frame mechanism, right? So we want to support this cause, I think.
Is this
Yeah.
implemented?
Some simple reference thing is implemented. If you look at the
Well, it already works on XMTP, Lens, and Farcaster.
XMTP and Lens are also kind of in the same ecosystem. So yeah, what is this Uranos third-party client?
It's a third-party client for Blue Sky, it seems.
Oh, okay. Okay. I mean, I know both the Blue Sky team and the Farcaster team. So if some diplomacy would help, I can try and like ping them and encourage them to support frames. Okay. We should create a Rome page for this material. I think it's going to explode too much.
We kind of have a lot of this already, right?
Right.
Yeah, I'm trying to describe what is. This is not meant to be aspiration for what isn't. But yeah, the one thing, the two green boxes, they can be the same, right? So if it's really
Yeah.
a web app,
Mhm.
it's just a question of whether the dotted purple box is seen or not. So Farcaster will see the dotted purple envelope. Regular clients won't. And regular clients will need some other workflow to like, I don't know, get some credits to run on the thing. So the part that's not done is if this is a truly general mechanism, can it run on the Galaxy? And yeah, I guess,
Yeah. So basically, we don't have a wallet for each rover right now. So it's like a common Farcaster wallet.
yeah, but that's
That is
trivial. I mean, it doesn't need to be operated by the rover. We can just create a bunch of random wallets and use a split contract to send money in at least in simple ways. So that part, I think you can do even without any programming. Like, for example, if you wanted to equally send any money to different wallets corresponding to each rover, that you can just do with 0x splits, for example.
Okay.
But yeah, if you wanted to do something more complicated, like, Rover 1 has been active 10 times more than Rover 2, and therefore it should get 10 times the revenue from the main wallet, that requires implementing some internal bookkeeping logic.
What would be the benefit of having a shared wallet and not operating them completely independent?
Right now, I think it's because the frame to pick a rover and then choose it and then start playing with it, that's a central single point of entry. But yeah, I can see like doing this in a way where you can have like more than one frame server, and you can basically create a network of like frame server nodes, and different rovers might choose to like talk to different frame servers. You could have something simple like one-to-one. Each rover gets its own frame server. Or imagine like if we do this well and lots of people get interested and hundreds of people want to run their rovers, I think chances then are what would happen is they would want like a choice of like, 10 or 15 frame servers and say, hey, I'm in Japan, therefore I'll try and like hook up with the Japanese frame server, something like that, right? So a slightly smaller network of entry points compared to rovers is what I think is the...
Yeah, it seems like the primitive of a single frame server for a single robot, or at least unless there was some combined control system. But, well, anyway, you want Farcaster as the discovery mechanism, because that's really the point of social feeds anyway. So you might as well have different frame servers for different rovers.
I think there's some
contributed by multiple people. Yeah.
Separating those two abstraction layers. So for example, if there's multiple rovers in a single physical location, there's a lot of possibility for the kind of thing Mayer wanted, which is like, unbundle and socially mix and match. So I would want two rovers to talk to the same frame server and maybe present an interface where you can like, take the camera from one rover and take the temperature sensor from another rover and like command that combination. So if you want to do that type of thing, I think it makes sense to keep the frame server layer separate, right? Not one-to-one. So one-to-one is somewhat restrictive, whereas like many-to-many basically lets you do any arbitrary mix and match of like rover capabilities.
Then we need a discovery mechanism for the frame server and then a separate discovery mechanism for the rovers, right?
So we can have like a top level frame that's simply an index of available like frame servers. So it could be like first frame is Seattle 1, Seattle 2, Finland, Israel, Japan, right? So somebody picks one. Then when they go there, they see the rovers available attached to that frame server, and then they pick one. So if they pick the Seattle 1, which in this case represents mine, they'll be offered a menu of like control the tumbler or control the galaxy. They pick one and play with it, right? Couple of abstraction layers. So it's, yeah. I mean, we don't have to plan for like millions of rovers and stuff. Right now, we have what? I don't have Japan here.
Don't think so small. Soon they will outnumber us all.
Eric, you need to add a Farcaster-capable rover in Japan. I haven't put your box here.
It can be any rover. I think you have. I think Mayer has a spider bot, and we try to put those spider bots on line too.
Yeah, well, what we need we need Elon Musk to agree that he needs a Farcaster-enabled bot on what's it called, Mothership.
That's Starship. The cheapest way to get to Mars, which is like, build this virtual software thing and then convince somebody already going to Mars to join our network. But yeah, I mean, this is meant to be a straw man, and is it obviously wrong in any ways? Is it like not general enough, too general? Should there be more boxes? Like, where would you put AI in this picture? Like, if you had LLMs, they're pretty heavy, so they should probably run on a fairly powerful, relatively centralized computer, right? So if you wanted to give natural language commands, like, hey, go look for a paperclip for me, and then it needs to be translated to like a Galaxy's capabilities, which is an UNO plus a small ESP32. That LLM probably has to run on like a proper server, right?
OpenAI?
Yeah, that's
No,
one option.
Yeah,
Just
like
follow.
yeah,
Yeah.
OpenAI has some of these functions already, so you could have like a specific functions, and then what it does, if you can write it in natural language, and it will fill in the parameters for that function, then call it.
And so basically, we can just use the API basically to
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
But there is the cost involved, but there could be a
More than
multiplex.
cost, I think one of the principles we should establish early is to try and keep everything here as open source as possible. So if there is an open source LLM alternative, like the, what is that?
The Llama models.
Yeah, Llama file, CPP, that kind of thing. Or one of the Hugging Face open things. But do you all agree? Like Forecaster is
I think like with OpenAI, it's a little easier because they have that tooling done already for function calling. With open source models, we might have to build that. Yeah, obviously somebody who is like an expert in LLMs will be able to do it quite
Here you
fast.
go. I got something for you.
So this is an open source API thing?
It runs in the browser using WebGPU. So you could literally have an LLM running in the frame server as long as the computer that was using it was fast enough.
Yeah.
And now most smartphones, the SoC includes a GPU. So as long as the web GPU JS can use those GPUs, shouldn't be too bad.
Oh, generalizing the concern, like I think I've been sensitized by the BeagleBone experience. What are the dependencies in this picture of Anuraj vanished? Like, VPN, the options seem to be scale and a couple of other commercial options. Forecaster is half commercial. LLMs, our main choices are commercial. So yeah, it would be good to do that quick analysis. Oh yeah, can we talk a little bit about the VPN? Like Anuraj, you tried the tail scale, it didn't quite work, so we had to go back to ngrok, right? So where are we now?
The VPN. Yeah, we found out so we discussed this last week or after the DevCon when you were not there. So it was basically like the ESP32 were not discoverable because once you have the subnetting on, then you need the RPI, because otherwise even if the ESP32s are on the same local network, the traffic always goes through that subnet. So that was one of the problems. So I didn't have the RPI on, and I had the subnetting via the RPI. So that's why
I think the guideline should be if the Rover does not have the compute power necessary to run Tailscale on board, because it's a ESP32, for instance, then you basically have to have a non-VPN network that they're going to connect to. You could have other things on Tailscale, but like I think the subnetting stuff might be just a little fragile for being mobile. And the other guideline, I think, should be that the rovers should reach out to the frame server as opposed to the other way around. Because I think the sharing of IP addresses just makes rovers connecting to different networks is probably way more common than moving the web server around to different networks. If that makes any sense.
I don't understand why it matters who reaches out to who.
Because when you connect your ESP32 to a new Wi-Fi network, how do you know what the IP address is if you want to talk to it?
Yeah.
If it reboots and reconnects to the Wi-Fi and doesn't get the same IP address again.
I don't.
No. So you're saying it'll then call the frame server it has in its sort of local directory and kind of like DNS.
Yeah, you burn into the firmware. Here's the IP address or whatever that it needs to talk to for its mothership or whatever to receive instructions, and it connects to it. And that could be a Raspberry Pi on the local network, but you'd have to set that up ahead of time if you know. You'd have to know where you're. Or
Well,
it could
we
be
don't have
somewhere
to, I
in the
think,
cloud.
burn, because if you're using Bluetooth, or his ESP32 has a Bluetooth, so you can provision the Wi-Fi with Bluetooth. If it comes within the range, basically, like, you could send out the Wi-Fi credentials via Bluetooth. That is possible. I've not enabled it yet, so right now I'm just hard coding it. But there is a way, like, you could send out, for example, from your phone the Wi-Fi credentials to your ESP32, and then it will connect to that Wi-Fi.
Related to that, I had a thought. Like a rover that physically is wandering around with a camera, it could actually look at a QR code or like some other like physical thing with its camera and use that to like discover where the network access point it should join, something like that. And the other way around, the rover itself can carry a QR code so that anything looking at it can also connect with it. Like I thought that was an obvious way to like if we get these rovers robust enough and we want to leave them running around a conference like DEF CON, how would you get people to control them? Well, put a QR code on the rover itself. Anybody who scans it gets the frame popping up on their Warpcast and they can control it, right?
How would this work?
Physical discovery is my point. Yeah.
How would this work in the streets of Seattle?
Same way, it would just prompt them to like make a Farcaster account to control it if they don't have one. If they have one, it'll show them the frame.
No, what I'm trying to figure out is what kind of control would you want to give I don't know, somebody walking on the streets of Seattle who sees a robot.
Yeah. So that's where I think Farcaster authentication is useful. If you recognize the person from the account as a trusted person who has like history of playing with the rovers, then you give them more control. If it's a complete stranger, you give them extremely limited control for security, right?
So what kind of control would you give them?
So for example, maybe you limit the maximum velocity or don't give them access to any dangerous actuators. Like, if there's a gun on the robot, don't.
No, I meant the opposite. I meant you, Venkat, a well-trusted Farcaster user, okay, and you've paid your dues to Robots R Us. And
it should be just based on follower count.
No, but what control? I mean, what control would you give? Not what variant control, okay? So you're coming, you have 20,000 followers, great.
So I think there's two dimensions here. One is just trust. You trust the person not to vandalize or damage the robot, but the other is skill. And I think you can have something like a series of like gamified missions, so you certify that they have learned to actually control the damn thing. Like, first time you play with the robot, you have to like, make it go around in a square. Second time, you're made to do more complex maneuvers. By the time you've like proven you're good enough, it'll give you like full level of control.
Okay.
And, yeah.
I'll buy that. So tell me, what percentage of the people walking the streets of Seattle have Farcaster accounts?
0. I'm sure it would round down to 0. At a place like DEF CON, it's probably likely to be like 40-50%. Even at DEF CON, I think it was not like a universal social account. But I mean, that's fine. I mean,
no, because I'm wondering if we can skip forward and put a robot on the street somewhere, and it has a barcode on it, and it says, "Scan me if you want to control me." But only if you have Farcaster.
No, I would say put a fork on that, as in like if you have a Farcaster, click this button, it'll get you like a richer control mode. If you don't, it'll take you to a basic web app that allows you to do some simple unauthenticated things, right? Or maybe it allows you to, I don't know, use your Twitter login and allows you to do some simpler things, because number of people who have Twitter is more likely to be like 20% instead of 0%.
But they won't admit it.
And I'm not sure how serious of a issue this is, because the idea of putting a robot on the street in Seattle is, I mean, it's just going to be stripped for parts or gone in about
like, in
about 5 seconds.
That robot meetup you went to or you were going to, that kind of thing, it's a reasonably trusted environment. People are showing up with robots. Put a couple there, let people play with it. So that's the extreme case is put it on the streets for vandalizing. But
at a robot event, sure, I can see that. And also 0% forecaster, I can guarantee it.
Right, they have these delivery robots.
Delivery robots, I think, are fairly ruggedized, like against being kicked and vandalized, but people still vandalize them.
Most of them are just Starship robots, right? Starship is an Estonian company which is basically making those delivery robots, and I have not seen any other.
They all seem to look the same.
Yeah, it's because it's built by the same company. It's called Starship Robotics or something. It's so most of their engineering is in Tallinn. That's why they look the same.
Right, it's a cubicle one with a couple of shelves inside for pizza or something. Okay, I've seen those. But I think the most interesting end game here is after you try it at a couple of like controlled environment events, like robotics events and crypto conferences, then you would want to like put it in like a national park or something, where chances are people who come find it are like hikers or otherwise like somewhat interesting people, or you put it right next to like remote cameras so people can control it remotely, and you make it mainly remote access and play with kind of thing. Like if you have a rover in the Mojave Desert, few people are actually going to find it physically. A lot of people might be able to go to a URL and say, hey, here's the bird's eye view of the rover, or FPV thing through the cell phone, and just control it, right?
In the national parks, like one of the use cases for the hikers would be to have a bird's eye view of the surroundings. So you could have a drone or something that is going around, and then like people want to see what's around them. Then people could just rent, okay, take a picture for this area for me, and then come down and share me the picture. So that is like a one use case.
If you start using drones, that the control is hard enough, I think that you want AI there. So there the command would be high level, something like fly up and give me a bird's eye view. It won't be like I'm going to control like real-time flying of the drone.
Yeah, so actually like I've seen things like, so there is something called a PX4 like a swarm robot control, drone control. So like I've seen people like write natural language command, go over this GPS location and form a square around this area, and then the 4 drones would get commands from that large language model, and then they would form a square around that GPS area. I've seen people do that.
Yeah, I imagine the whole drone formation stuff is very sophisticated now, just going by all the displays that we see now. But I think it's harder in some ways because it's very fast real-time control, but it's easier in some ways because it's like open 3D volume that you're like basically doing voxels in, right? So XYZ and then do something at XYZ. Whereas ground robots are fundamentally harder. There's obstacles, terrain issues, you can get stuck in mud. So in some ways, ground robots are harder. So, but I think that's the end game for ground rovers as well. Like, you have a whole bunch somewhere, you ask them to form a formation and do stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's also why I think it's useful to keep the frame server as a separate abstraction layer, because really what you want to give the user is a composition language of capabilities. They, at some level, they shouldn't even care that there are 5 physical rovers with certain capabilities. They don't care. All they want is assemble a camera, a temperature sensor, and a seismic sensor at this location, and they shouldn't really care how it's put together, right? If you can produce a formation of 3 rovers and deliver the functionality they want, why do they care that it's these 3 particular rovers, or even that it's 3 rovers? As far as they're concerned, it's just one, right? I like that vision. It's like keep it almost transparent, if it's possible. I don't know if it's possible.
Yeah. But then the rovers themselves have to have some sort of coordination mechanism or discovery mechanism.
And probably a local ad hoc network if they're doing formation-y stuff, which is another reason I think we are set up to do some at least very primitive experiments along those lines, right? We have a couple of sites with 2 rovers in them, and we can ask people to do like 2 rover formation commands, like take photographs of each other and send it back.
The
Yeah,
problem
and
is
then
always.
yeah, go
Sorry.
on.
I was just going to say the problem is battery power. So when Eric wanted to have his rover on 24/7, he tested it to an umbilical cord. Okay, so if we want to provide a service, somebody has to make sure the rovers are powered up all the time.
Can we have induction charging as a homing behavior? Like whenever battery goes low, it just goes and like sits over an induction charger, like a wireless iPhone charger, and charges itself up. That feels like
Yeah,
it's
if you have localization, that is quite easy to do.
But
I think SparkFun had kits for that.
But the rover needs to know the location, right? So you need to
yeah,
have
but
some sort
maybe
of
we can
localization.
have open Roomba instead of these robots. You can go on Forecaster and help me clean up my bedroom.
That's actually a good experiment to run. It's similar to the lawn mowing thought experiment Eric had a couple of weeks back.
Right. But the only thing is, a Roomba is probably cheaper than a lawnmower.
Yeah.
But otherwise, lawnmower would be fun too.
I think
We'll call it Tom Sawyer thing.
does a Roomba have like an open API and is otherwise accessible, or is it all closed source and proprietary? All the Boston Dynamics robots are like completely closed source and locked up.
Right.
Well,
I think some of the Chinese robots have, like, I know one of my German friends who has like hacked into it, so it's like running Ubuntu or something. So
there's Roomba open interface.
So one of the things we should do after we like specify whatever we are doing and build like a demo on our couple of rovers is then just do a search of like which other existing domestic robots can it be easily ported to.
the easiest would be to just buy those Chinese vacuum cleaners, uh, and they are running Ubuntu, so we get all the sensors.
Is there a way to make this functionality kind of an appliance where it's like a little box that handles all this frame and command and all that stuff, but otherwise just plugs into any robot via USB? I don't know if that
That's
even.
what I just
Okay. So there's
posted.
something called Home Assistant Green. It's a RPI based Home Assistant ready-made box. So it's like there is a company behind Home Assistant is for your internet
Home automation.
home automation, internet IoT stuff. So there is a company behind that protocol, and then they provide something called Home Assistant Green. It's like a ready-made RPI with all this stuff needed, and they sell that and make money via that. So if you want like home automation, you don't want to set up RPI by yourself, you buy that. So,
Look at what I just put in the private chat. That's exactly how the Roomba open interface works. You send to the Roomba serial port by way of a PC or microcontroller that's connected to the mini DIN connector. Okay, so that's exactly what you said. They have a little box, and it's connected to the mini DIN connector, and you send commands, and it has inside, everything you need.
My suspicion is that each of these will be a major project since you have to understand the inside architecture of each and like I don't know, do some wrapping and bridging and
No, this is from iRobot. iRobot is providing this.
Oh, okay.
tutoring.
And my point is, if there's a whole bunch of these random robots from Chinese companies, each is probably a project.
That would be, yeah.
So you need a triage, find a couple of popular models and support them.
The Q82 hasn't been discontinued.
There's a Another API like this called the Matter API or something.
I don't know. It looks like they have a movement called
So is
iRover.
this still on, or is this like nobody uses this? Because I never seen this before.
And neither have I. It's one of those things you've always wanted, but you never thought to look for.
Wait, what is this thing you're looking at?
It's a Roomba educational kit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm going into the shopping cart, and they're willing to sell me stuff. Yeah.
All right, guys, I gotta take off.
Yeah. Same here.
Yeah, 5 minutes pass.
All right. Good discovery session.
Great.
Catch
Thank
you later.
you.
See you next
Bye.
week. Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.